Good evening. Apologies for the slightly delayed start. We've had some tech issues and some things go wrong on our end. Apologies, it does happen, but we're here now. Welcome to Normal Island on the eve of the by-election Gorton and Denton. I'm Ben Mclaine, and I will be joined later in the show by the founder and CEO of Naked Politics, Banseka Kayembe. I'm really excited to do a show with Banseka. First time I've done a show with her, and I'm really looking forward to it. But coming up on the show tonight, Labour are lying by omission to help reform. David Lammy plans an AI judicial dystopia, and the Daily Mail are screeching, "Beware the Green Menace." I love that line. I love that line. We need to start using that line when Reform say that they're going to form the next government. No, beware the Green Menace. Remember that we'll be coming to your comments at the end, so please do put them in the chat. Like the video, share it, it all helps. Watch us on Twitch if you can. Because I think Leo rightly pointed out we need more views to grow there, and so you can help us grow by visiting turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work, or by becoming a YouTube member. Cool. Let's go on to our first story then. This week, Byline Times and Forward Democracy commissioned a poll in Gorton and Denton. The poll was conducted by Opinium and seems to corroborate what the constituency polling has found so far. The Greens and Labour are neck and neck to beat Reform. Among all those polled, Labour and the Greens were tied on 28%, with Reform close behind on 27%. Opinion stated, and I agree, that this makes this poll too close to call. However, among those who consider themselves likely to vote, the Greens have a clear lead on 30% compared to Reform and Labour lagging behind on 28%. Now, I want to be super clear. It's not in the bag for the Greens. Reform can still win. And there's a chance they will. We haven't seen a force like Reform in British political history, which has both massive membership, like a mass membership movement, and it's also a class of billionaire backed movement. It's both a mass membership movement, and a billionaire backed movement. A lot of this depends on getting the vote out tomorrow for the Greens. They want 2,000 campaigners out on the day to help get their vote out. I hope they get more, because the election will hinge on that, in my view. If you can go out to Gorton and Denton, please do. Every person knocking doors makes the biggest difference. Remember that the by-election in Runcorn was won by it was a very small margin. And it's likely to be the case again in Gorton and Denton, so please do get out and vote. But there's another point that is critical to understand for Labour supporters right now. The Labour Party wants Reform to win here. They want Reform to win because the Green Party they want Reform to win because the Green Party are more of a threat to the current Labour Party than Reform are. So they've decided that they want Reform to win. And make no mistake, they're going to throw you into the pit. They will let Nigel Farage destroy your communities. They'll let him starve your kids and immiserate young people by cutting their wages, because it might hurt their political careers, because it might inconvenience them at the next election. Okay, but why do I say that? Because, why am I so certain? Well, it's because of how they're acting. So the opinion polling that we showed you a few moments ago had Labour and the Greens tied on 28% with Reform on 27%, right? This is how Labour reported that same poll on their Twitter feed. For those listening on the podcast, the Labour Party put up a graph which shows the Labour Party on 28%, Reform on 27%, and omits the Greens entirely. The text says, breaking, new poll suggests there is just 1 point between Labour and Reform in Gorton and Denton. Every vote will count on Thursday. Back Labour and choose unity over Reform's division. That's the text that Labour put with that. Now, I just want everyone to consider the implications of this. They know that reporting this makes a Reform win more reporting like this, makes a Reform win more likely. They know that well-meaning people will see this and assume that Labour have the best chance of defeating Reform. Those people will then vote for Labour, splitting the vote and letting Reform win. Now, a Labour supporter might say, well, aren't the Greens splitting the vote too? I mean, if they're tied for the same spot, aren't the Greens just splitting the vote as much as Labour are? But remember, the Greens are slightly ahead among those who are likely to vote. All of the tactical voting websites that I've seen so far say to vote Green. Even then, the Greens aren't reporting the poll with Labour omitted. So the question is, why are Labour hiding the Greens numbers? It can only be to throw the election to the Reform Party. And that's not just me saying that. Reform's candidate in Gorton and Denton, Matt Goodwin, agrees that this is now a battle between the Greens and Reform.
Because the choice is between Reform or the Greens. That is the reality. If you're a Lib Dem, if you're a Tory, if you are planning on voting for one of the other candidates, the reality is it is Reform versus the Greens. Now, if you want legalized drugs, legalized crack cocaine and heroin, you want open borders, you want children being told they can change gender, you want energy bills going even higher because of more net zero madness, and if you want an MP that's only going to talk about Gaza and is going to be having leaflets in different languages and only talking about one part of the constituency, then go ahead and vote Green.
Thanks, Matt. I will. In all seriousness, net zero targets make bills cheaper because renewable energy is cheaper to produce and we're getting better at storing it. The Greens also want to insulate houses because, to quote Hannah Spencer, the cheapest bill is the one you don't pay. More insulation on your house means every penny goes further because you're not effectively paying a large energy corporation to heat the sky. Right. So DeSmog also reported last year that 92% of Reform's donations since 2019 had come from fossil fuel interests and climate change deniers. These are the people that Matt Goodwin works for, right? He's working for these people, the same people who are charging you to heat the sky because they don't want you to have your house properly insulated. These are the people that Matt Goodwin works for, not the people of Gorton and Denton. But the first attack in Goodwin's video was about the drugs policy. And Labour also put a video out scaremongering about drug legalisation.
We want to see drugs legalised.
Open drug use around schools and parks.
I live here, you know, it affects where I take my children. I think we should legalize drugs.
Don't risk their safety. Okay. So, dealing with that last frame first, talking about the kids and all of this stuff we've heard about how the Greens want your kids to take drugs. Okay, look, alcohol is legal in this country, right? And most of us support the idea of alcohol being legal. Most of us do not support the idea that that means that children should have access to alcohol, right? Just because you support the legalization of drugs, that doesn't mean that you're supporting children having access to drugs. No one is supporting that. By the way, the reason Portugal's legalization policy was successful and Oregon's wasn't was largely due to like the lack of rehabilitation access in Oregon. Not enough people were being given medical treatment because there was still a social and cost barrier. So I'll bring in Banseka now. You might have to unmute. I'm not sure if you're still muted.
Can you hear me? Am I here? Hello.
I can't hear you. Is that something? Oh, maybe I've done it my end. Could people confirm if they can just hear Banseka? It might just be my end. Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I think it's just me. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Cool.
I'll just carry on then.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry. So Banseka, we'll get to that poll and the what Labour have done. But first of all, what did you make of the attacks on the Greens over the drug policy specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like mass hysteria. A little bit desperate maybe as well. I mean, I remember when this attack line started emerging from Keir Starmer, I think in particular, he was trying to start this like moral panic that, you know, the Greens would be legalising drugs, and they talked about, you know, drugs being legalised outside of schools. They'll be selling drugs outside of schools, as though that doesn't probably happen already. But it's like not regulated in any way, which strikes me as pretty bad. So yeah, that they've kind of latched onto this as a kind of policy area. I suppose someone like Keir Starmer as well imagines that he's quite strong around this area, as you know, previous DPP, strong on law and order. That's kind of his kind of weird authoritarian vibe, isn't it? Yeah, I think the Labour attacks in particular, like, they feel pretty desperate. I've not really heard the Labour Party in this particular election. Well, I haven't heard much from them in general, other than fudging the polls and the numbers. I've not heard them talk an awful lot about how they're going to raise, those constituencies' living standards, which I imagine for people in that seat is something they really care about. And there was a good bunch of interviews, I think, done actually by The Guardian, where they spoke to quite a lot of local people who, really are, hand to mouth, really choosing between heating and eating. And it's really, really bad. And the Labour Party seems to have very little to say about that. And it kind of leans into much more of that scaremongering tactic stuff. The Greens are going to get your kids on drugs, vote Labour or you'll get reform. And it's very scary. Not a lot of substance or anything to feel particularly kind of hopeful about. I think people in that area will care about things that are far more important, like the cost of living, of course. I also think there's more people there who care about foreign policy, actually, and what's going on in Gaza, and are appalled at successive governments in this country that have allowed and supported the genocide in Gaza. I think that's actually going to be something which is a factor, maybe not the biggest factor in this election, but it will be a factor. And so this focus on drugs and the scaremongering, it's pretty desperate, and it's a little bit pathetic. I think on the facts of it as well, obviously things may well change because Zach Polanski is now leader, and the Green Party will have its own review internally as a party as to what policies it wants to support, of course, and the members, I presume, have a good say in that. But I'm quite confused because as per their 2024 manifesto from a year and a half ago, there isn't really anything in there around sort of drugs, aside from calling for just a kind of quite milquetoast national commission into the UK's approach to drug laws. So it feels really hysterical. I'm not entirely sure what they're basing it on, other than maybe a bit of hearsay and sort of hysteria and desperation. And I don't think that's going to pan out particularly well for the Labour Party. I don't think that's going to certainly help them win the seat. It may well help reform, but it's not going to help them.
I do think there's a tendency, because I was watching Angeliki Stoijer, the Labour candidate, in some of the debates. I do think there's a tendency for her to try to lean on what Labour are doing nationally, and I think that could majorly backfire, because the way that Labour have acted nationally is not popular among the kind of people who might vote Labour and swing the election for them in Gorton and Denton, if you see what I mean. What about the reporting of that poll? What did you make of the way that Labour reported the poll? And am I being too cynical in saying that it looks like they're trying to throw the election to reform rather than let the Greens win?
That graph was so bad. So bad. Just the way they cropped out, the Greens in that, and just, kind of fudged and misrepresented the numbers there a little bit. It's totally absurd, but at the same time, I suppose it follows quite a consistent pattern of Keir Starmer, Morgan McSweeney's Labour Party, right? He started his bid as leader by lying, so I guess why would they stop? Don't stop now, I guess. I'm not necessarily surprised. I don't think that's too cynical at all. I agree with you, actually. And I've long thought, I often think this when I watch even just regular panel shows and stuff like that, where you have the one left-wing person on the panel every now and again, and the Labour person always hates that panel member so much. They seem to hate them and have so much disdain for them in a way that they do not reform. And you think about Jonathan Ashworth, when he lost his seat, I can't remember his previous constituents, and he lost his seat to an independent MP who was elected in part because of Labour's failures around Gaza. And he just had so much resentment that I just don't think he would have if someone to the right of him had won instead. So there is this kind of slightly irrational, I think, view that has infused the Labour Party, very much kind of Morgan McSweeney's ideas, which I think still continue long after he's gone, of just really, really hating the left and preferring to see the right win. And I think there's also a tangible reason as to why, which is that if the left win, if the left make gains, that's very difficult for Blue Labour. That's very difficult to then justify, well, we have to do this. The Labour Party has to, quote unquote, meet people where they are, which just means, very harsh migration controls and a tiny shrinking welfare state. They have to change tack. It forces them to have to do different things. Even that last budget that we got in the autumn of last year, there was definitely some stuff in there that was definitely influenced by the presence of Zach Polanski's Green Party, right? And some of the tiny, small concessions they made, even in that respect. So, there's more pressure on them if a left-wing party wins to have to actually represent popular left-wing policies that people actually want around transport, around student loans, around taxing the rich properly. So, if they actually wanted to be more serious, to be quite honest with you, about winning with a, slightly more milquetoast Labour candidate, then they could have picked Andy Burnham for that seat, right? If they were actually serious about winning. But they couldn't even concede to that. And Andy Burnham, people watching don't necessarily think he's massively left wing. He's only a little bit more left wing, or sort of really soft left. So in many ways, I guess this referendum, it's a microcosm referendum on their politics and where they should go from here. And so it doesn't really surprise me that in many ways they probably would prefer to see a Reform win rather than a Green win, just because Morgan McSweeney's gone. That doesn't mean the deep irrational hate and fear of the left has disappeared, and their only argument really, I hate this argument so much, just to say vote for us and to stop X, vote for us to stop the Tories, vote for us to stop Reform. It's just one of the most bankrupt and really boring political arguments we've had to endure over the last sort of several years or so. No real hope, no possibility, no positivity, no real change. Just vote for us so something bad doesn't happen. It's a losing strategy, and I think they are banking on losing, and probably losing to Reform rather than the Greens. I don't think that's irrational at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right to say, and I like the phrase, like microcosm referendum or something along those lines. You said that's really good.
Thanks, I'll copyright that.
Yeah, copyright it. Go on, before Reform claim it. It's like, but I'm sorry, the Labour Party at the moment, they're such bastards. Like, I really do think that these tactics, like if the Green Party started using these tactics, we would be having a conversation about how they shouldn't be deceiving voters and they should, be honest about but. Reform just have no fucking Reform. You see, the Freudian slip there. Reform, not Reform. The Labour Party have no fucking morals. They've just got none. Yeah. And I remember when I met Zach at Media Democracy Festival last year, and he was trying to persuade, because he was running for leader at the time. He was trying to persuade me to join the Green Party, and he was like, you should join up, because then you can vote if you get in by this time. I can't remember what it was, and I was like, but I'm very supportive of you, so long as you sort of understand what your purpose is. And to me, your purpose is to do to the Labour Party what Nigel Farage did to the Conservative Party, and drag them towards the away from the centre of the political spectrum. Drag them away. You only need 20% of the population to do that. You just need to be able to make Labour suffer enough in the seats that you don't have to win. Labour just have to lose. And I think it's fair to say that the Greens, as far as I can tell, they seem to have exceeded my expectations on that point. Like, did you expect that the Greens would go this? Because I didn't. Did you expect that the Greens would actually be at a stage where they're looking at, if they continue with their current rise, they could reasonably form the next government?
I don't know about forming the next government. I mean, because I still think there's a long way to go. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, so I don't want to. That was a beautiful piece of optimism that you had there, and I don't want to ruin it or crush it, because we need it. We need some optimism during these times. I think there's still a really long way to go.
I definitely agree that there's a long way to go, but what I'm saying is that if their rise continues as it is, because they've gone from 5% in the polling to now being 18, 19, above the Labour Party in national polling. Like, that is unprecedented in a two-party system. Like, I think that's it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal achievement, and all credit to Zach Banseka and Green Party members, and all the kind of wonderful politicians that they seem to be curating it as well. I think I'm a bit tempered, assuming the next election is in 2029. But I expect some really significant, huge things from them, and I think we're going to see, whenever that next election happens, we are going to see some really shocking things, including, I hope, some really big strides forward for the Greens. It's a long way to go, but I think there's all positivity and power to them. There's totally vacant seat for proper progressive left-wing politics, and the Greens are taking it all. There's nobody else there. Well, look, as someone who did go through the Corbyn years, and obviously we've all watched what's happened with Trump and all that, like, I do totally understand why you would be skeptical. I do totally get that. Shall we go on to our second story? Let's head on. So with the second story, what was I going to say? Oh yes, just before I do actually go on to our second story, just if you can get out to Gorton and Denton, I just want to emphasize, please, really, it is very important to get people out and on the ground. I just want to re-emphasize that message. It's really important. So let's go on to our second story properly. Welcome to our new dystopia. It appears that David Lammy is looking at how AI could be integrated into our justice system. With a court backlog of over 80,000 cases, the Justice Secretary announced earlier this year that the court system would be dropping the right to a jury trial for hundreds of cases. Many critics have pointed out that this may have more to do with convicting Palestine action protesters than an actual way to reduce the backlog, and have rightly said that you can't remove rights just because it speeds the process up, right? If speed was the most important thing in the justice system, we'd just toss a coin to decide if someone was innocent or guilty. Justice does actually matter, and lots of people, including legal experts, are deeply concerned about David Lammy's plans. The Bar Council, which represents barristers in England and Wales, published a press release today entitled "Restricting Jury Trials Carries Substantial Risk and Little Gain." Bar Council Chair Kirsty Brimelow, KC, said in the press release, "Juries have not caused this crisis, and we haven't seen no evidence which validates curtailing them. That is why we fundamentally disagree with the restriction of jury trials. The objection is principled and pragmatic, and the mantra of modernisation in relation to juries is a Trojan horse to hack at a deeply rooted constitutional principle. Practically, there is little evidence to support the government's decision to rush through legislation which unnecessarily tampers with the right to be judged by a jury of one's peers. Not only is this extraordinarily unfair to those who have not only is this extraordinarily unfair to those who have already elected the Crown Court, understanding that it is a jury trial, it interferes with legal certainty and runs the risk of tying the courts up in appeals, further increasing the backlogs. We urge the government to give efficiency measures time to work rather than drain time and resources on a proposal that carries substantial risk for negligible gain." Apologies for when I was reading there. Can't seem to get my words out today. And it's not the only step they've taken. The government has invested millions into the court system to help ease the backlog, to their credit. However, the story doesn't end there. David Lammy and Brian Levison, who's leading the reforms, have said that they want to use more AI to help deal with the court backlog. LBC reported that the Justice Secretary will give a speech at the Microsoft AI Tour in London on Tuesday, where he is expected to back digital modernisation across the court system, including greater use of AI. As part of his report on fixing the criminal justice system, Sir Brian Levison has suggested courts could rely on AI summaries of witness statements when they are taking case management decisions. Concerns have been raised about the dangers of ramping up the use of AI. Last month, a review into the banning of Maccabi Tel Aviv football fans from attending a football match against Aston Villa last November found an AI hallucination produced by Microsoft Copilot had helped police justify the move. The error meant that a non-existent game between Tel Aviv and West Ham had been referenced in a report produced by the police force prior to the game. I think so many people are fooled into thinking that AI can perform miracles because they don't understand how it works, and summarizing witness statements incorrectly could be devastating for people whose freedom literally hangs in the balance. But that wouldn't affect all groups equally if these measures were introduced, right? Because AI systems are trained on data that lacks representation and contains systemic injustice. The tendency is for AI to repeat those biases into its output. So one meta-study by the Journal of Medical Internet Research found that 67%, right, almost 70% of available studies showed racial bias by AI in clinical settings. Fortunately, my guest tonight actually has a law degree herself and has some experience in legal aid, so I'm actually really keen to get your thoughts on this, Banseka.
Yeah. You made me laugh when I realised I was going to be... Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I think it was my end. Go on.
Yeah, you made me laugh when I realised I was going to be asked about this, because my degree was so long ago, so I was like, I don't remember. But I do have a bazillion questions about all of this, to be honest. I think most of which are pretty fucking ominous, to be honest with you. I'm actually quite scared about the prospect of this. I mean, David Lammy's been speaking, I think you said, to Microsoft, right? Yeah, we've had a real wake-up call recently about the idea that we're like basically outsourcing so much of our decision-making power, now our data. We already outsource all our foreign policy to America, and now we're just doing the same with data, right? So we've had a kind of vague conversation about that, which I guess is happening in a complete vacuum, and David Lammy doesn't know anything about that, or maybe he doesn't care. But it deeply concerns me to think that we're going to have, American companies potentially being so involved in our justice and our criminal justice system. There's a million questions to ask, isn't there? I mean, who owns the AI tools that are going to be holding such sensitive information? How is the data going to be protected? All of these things. I mean, you mentioned my time in working in a legal aid firm, which was the reason, I guess, why I never became a lawyer, right? That was why I didn't really go into the profession, right? I didn't see myself as a corporate lawyer, but also legal aid was really hard. And I was there in like the start of the austerity years. So basically, like the whole, like everyone was just really worried that basically there wasn't going to be any work for legal aid lawyers because it had all just been cut. It had all been decimated. And I spent like my first sort of several weeks in that legal aid firm just turning people away and just saying, yeah, this isn't covered by legal aid. It doesn't help you anymore. And in many ways, maybe the idea of AI in our criminal justice system and in the court system in particular is a kind of continuation of that same logic, I think. It is difficult to believe that this is in no way happening because of cost and because of cost cutting. I don't think anyone said that, but it's difficult not to believe that it may not be part of that logic, right? A shrinking of the state in the interests of kind of private business and big business. I think one of the rubbish things as well, just to talk about like AI being introduced into our court system, just from like a worker's perspective as well. And I was thinking about this like last weekend when I ended up in a really horrible debate about young people and unemployment levels. One of the really shit things about AI automation is not just the fact that, of course, it reduces the amount of jobs in the job market for human beings, for people, but it also makes things way worse for the people who still have jobs, who then have to work way more with AI and they can't work with people as much anymore. And it's been reported that, those people often end up doing more work, like they end up doing the bits that AI can't do, and that kind of gets loaded onto them, and then their job gets changed. It becomes more expansive, but their pay probably doesn't really match or reflect that, right? So, I think the court system is already strained to an extent. It's already, I think, underfunded as it is, and there'll be workers in that court system who are probably going to have to deal with it with a more strange system where they may be asked to do even more, and then told, oh, you can do everything easily now because you've got AI, but AI probably still can't do everything. And as you've already mentioned, like AI can't maybe even do the things it's supposed to do well yet. So there's a problem there from a worker's perspective. And the other thing, of course, that's just super basic is people need to get justice. Our court system, exists so that people get justice, so that people get fairness, that anybody who goes through that system gets their fair dues. David Lammy says he believes in that. Okay. And it's concerning, to be honest with you, that our government is potentially willing to risk that system to streamline the court system, as if that's the kind of fundamental point of our justice system. If a mistake in our court system is made, that can have a profound effect on somebody's life, on their loved ones, on family members. Trust is being eroded in all kinds of sort of our institutions, and the court system is by no means immune to that. And I completely agree as well about the point about AI being likely to exacerbate things like discrimination, which we already know is massively embedded in the court system, particularly with regards to race, but also gender, disabilities, all kinds of things as well. So genuinely, it's just super worrying all round, and it does not seem like a scenario that's going to go well.
Yeah, I think I fundamentally agree. AI has to be forced into everything at the moment, and it really does piss me off. Like every system that I use, like the editors and like even Word documents or stuff. Well, not Word documents, but like Microsoft Copilot and all that. It's so irritating how I just have AI like forced down my throat. And I fucking hate it. I think I say that every time AI has been brought up. People in the chat can confirm that. But also, like, I do think it just makes the case stronger for democracy in the workplace, right? Because if you're a court worker, you're not going to vote for yourself to be replaced with AI. Like, I just think, yeah, there's like a real sort of like fundamental argument here that we we should be like latching onto and going, hey, these guys want you to be a slave to the robots, and we don't. We want you to, to have the say over the robots. That sounds like a good future to me,
Yeah, and no one's got an answer for this, by the way. Like, if you ever try and ask someone from Reform, you ask conservative commentators, nobody's got an answer for this. Everyone's complaining about why people have no jobs, but they don't seem to want to tackle this very problem that, capitalism is creating that issue, is creating that problem, because it's about profit at any cost, right? They don't seem to have an answer for that. It's just kind of radio silence, or just the usual defaulting to it's your personal responsibility to get a job and be employed.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, their answer probably is workhouses, like workhouses for the poor.
Indentured servitude.
Literally, like, oh my god. Yeah, no, it's awful and dystopian. I did have another point. I can't remember what it was now about AI being brought into the court system. It may have just been talking about Palestine Action, but I suppose we can always address that at the end. Hopefully one of the comments will jog my memory on what I was going to ask, and we'll be able to discuss that at the end. Cool. Let's go on. But before we do move on, it's 2026, and we really want this to be a big year for Turn Left. We want to be more ambitious than last year and really help to put us on the map. We would like 2026 to be the year when we can have a studio and our contributors can be paid for the work we do. Your support over the years has been amazing, and we are ready to take this to the next level. We do rely on small donations, so if you want us to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly on Patreon. Sorry, the graphic flashed up. Or there is another link for a one-time contribution. You can also become a YouTube member for 99p. Thank you very much. Let's go on to our final story. So, during the Corbyn years that I referenced earlier, it was not uncommon for the media to print utterly erratic and bizarre fan fictions about how Corbyn would destroy the country if he ever got into power. Quite often these were printed in the Daily Mail, which is among Britain's least factually accurate newspapers. It might even be Britain's most factually inaccurate newspaper. This week, the Daily Mail decided to do a new version of this, especially tailored and giving the same treatment to one Zach Polanski. Greens plan to hand illegal migrants free house, a wage and NHS care. And this article is written by Sarah Vine, who is former Conservative Minister Michael Gove's ex-wife. Small world after all, isn't it? Especially if you work in politics or mainstream media. And they gave it the fantastic subtitle, and one that I think we should all be adopting: Beware the Green Menace. I think we should all be adopting this and start using this whenever they try to pile the uniparty shit onto us, or whenever anybody is being a bit too skeptical about the chances for progressivism in this country. Beware the Green Menace. Nigel Farage has a new plan for mass deportations. Excuse me. I forgot why I put that in there. I was saying Nigel Farage has a new plan for mass deportations. Well, beware the Green Menace. It's coming for Reform too. That was what I meant to say there. Excuse me. Sometimes I write things in the script and then I'm like, what did I mean by that? I've no idea. I have as much idea as you did. Sorry. In the article, Sarah Vine writes, illegal migrants would be given a free house and paid a wage with no requirement to work under the Green Party's immigration policy. Zach Polanski plans to let arrivals use the NHS for free the moment they enter Britain. Not people, by the way, arrivals. And they will be allowed to work with no restrictions under plans for a world without borders. I'm talking like this because I presume that's how Sarah Vine talks. So first of all, she's almost certainly referring to asylum seekers who aren't illegal migrants. Seeking asylum is legal, and you can't be penalised for your method of entry under Article 31 of the 1951 Refugee Convention, right? It makes your method of entry retrospectively legal. Like the Illegal Migration Act of 2023 made it a crime to travel to the UK via small boat, but this doesn't override the protections given to asylum seekers. So it's still legal to come via small boat and then claim asylum. They're not illegal migrants. Okay, secondly, yes, you shouldn't starve refugees. I can't believe I have to say that, but okay, that's counterproductive for everyone because you don't want desperate people with no money in your local area for gangs to exploit, whether they work or not. It's in your self-interest to make sure that they have the basics of life. And thirdly, up until the early 2000s, asylum seekers were allowed to work while they waited for their asylum claim to be processed. Since then, we've just banned them from working at all. They just have to sit there and wait, right? Some of them volunteer with charities and youth groups, and that is really great. But really, they should be given the right to work. I actually met a doctor from Kabul a few years ago who was researching UK medicine regulations to try and educate himself. He'd practiced as a GP in Kabul for 10 years, I think it was, and now he's now being made, or was then being made, to sit and wait, right? He'd been like in the UK for 2 years when I met him, waiting for his asylum claim to be heard. How wild is that? We have a shortage of NHS doctors, and he was just being made to sit and wait instead of working to benefit the community in the UK, to benefit everybody in the UK. A fully trained doctor who would need adjustments, but it would be cheaper than training a new doctor from scratch. So in summary, they'd be given free accommodation, which they already get, money to live on, which they already get, NHS access, which they already get. The only difference is that they would be allowed to work under the Greens. It's wild to paint that as a bad thing. We don't want them to be dependent upon the state, right? Sarah Vine goes on. Under the Greens' premiership, all illegal migrants would be handed a wage at the level of universal basic income with no requirement to be either working or actively seeking work. Migrant families would be accommodated in a house or flat with exclusive use, and lone men would each have their own room in shared accommodation. So they wouldn't be living below the breadline, which means less poverty and less crime. They're already given a wage without a requirement to work. So the difference is that the Greens would just let them work and build flats and houses for their use. Building flats and houses for their use is a good thing. We need cheap, good quality flats that are owned by local authorities, right? Those flats can also be used to increase the social housing supply when they're not in use. And the Greens do already have a plan to build council housing for Brits. They want to massively increase the number of council houses, so reducing the cost of rent in the private market. Rent is absolutely horrendous in this country. If they have their own accommodation, then they're not in hotels, army barracks, or getting accused of stealing houses off British people, right? The Daily Mail then whines about the Greens' drug policy for a bit, but we've kind of already covered that, so I want to go on to the next bit. Meanwhile, the Daily Mail revealed yesterday that policy states sex work should be decriminalised and restrictions placed on sexually explicit material ended, except for those aimed at protecting children. The decriminalisation of sex work is the norm for international advocacy groups who care about sex workers' rights. Violence against sex work is so often a result of its criminalisation. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, the World Health Organization, the UN, and the Global Alliance Against Trafficking in Women all support decriminalisation because it keeps sex workers safer. The Christchurch School of Medicine also found that New Zealand saw no increase in the number of sex workers, but a dramatic increase in their safety after decriminalisation took place in, I think it was 2007 or 2009 in New Zealand. So it's the common sense position, right? And an end to restrictions placed on sexually explicit material, like that phrasing would worry me, but this is the Daily Mail paraphrasing, so I'm almost certain that proper ethical considerations would be taken, not just release any and all sexually explicit material. So those are their main arguments, which mostly boils down to, and when I say there, I should be clear. So those are Sarah Vine's main arguments, the Daily Mail's main arguments, which mostly boils down to some good proposals, but 90% things we already do. Other than that, it's incredibly dramatic stuff that makes the Greens sound so much cooler than they actually are, right? This is how it ends. The days when the Green Party was populated by harmless eccentrics are a distant memory. In its current guise, the party has emerged as a ruthless political machine, willing to hitch its mast to unpalatable causes to increase its profile. It goes without saying that these proposals haven't been even slightly thought out. Most of them we already do, Sarah, you muppet, and in the normal course of events could be dismissed as a joke. But in a nightmare post-election scenario where the Greens ended up sharing power in a left-wing coalition with Labour and the Lib Dems, it wouldn't be left-wing if the Labour and the Lib Dems were in it, they would be no laughing matter at all. No laughing matter at all. Banseka, they're shitting themselves, aren't they? Like, they are actually shitting themselves. Like, what did you make of some of the attack lines there?
Yeah, we're on like full-on mass hysteria now. It's weirdly nostalgic, you know, taking us back to 2017 to 2019 sort of era. Yeah, Zach Palancy, he's getting the Jeremy Corbyn treatment, for sure. There's no doubt about that. I think he's dealing with it really well. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn's way of dealing with it, like, in a weird way, I think Jeremy Corbyn in many ways is very resilient, because I think personally, if I went through what he went through, particularly around the anti-Semitism stuff, which I think was the stuff that really kind of damaged him the most, the smears that damaged him the most. I suppose Zach Palanski, it feels bad to say this, but obviously as the man is Jewish, maybe it's also slightly easier for him to deal with that, although I still think he's had some horrendous stuff flung his way and insinuations that he's not really Jewish because he doesn't ascribe to Zionism and that type of stuff. But, you know, Jeremy Corbyn was kind of weirdly resilient, but he was also kind of prickly at the same time. You know, you could tell that sometimes he was like, oh, fuck this. Zach Palanski, I think, deals with it very well. I don't know if that's because it's probably just part of his natural disposition. He's a bit of a performer at heart as well. And, you know, Jeremy Corbyn's not naturally like that, you know. So I think he's dealing with it really well, but it's full on like mass hysteria for sure. That can only be a compliment. It means you are posing some kind of a threat. It means that you are posing some kind of a material threat to these people and their interests, and their interests lie with the very wealthy, the very rich. Their interests aren't, of course, with the working class. So, you know, I actually saw someone on Twitter, I can't remember who it was or if you saw it, actually threatened people today if anyone was tempted to vote for the Green Party. They're like, if you vote for the Green Party in that by-election, like, I'm coming for you. And it's like, bloody hell, like, you people have lost your goddamn minds, man. I mean, like, can't we just have a little bit of something nice? No?
Honestly, like, that hysteria has reached new levels, like particularly recently. But like, just focusing down on that article for a second,
yeah.
Do you find it strange that they're fear-mongering about stuff that like already happens? Like, we already have asylum seekers, they already have the right to medical care, to food, to shelter under international law, and we already do give them these things. The only like new thing that the Greens would be giving them here, they would be improving those things for sure, but like the only new thing that they're being given here in terms of the asylum seekers is that they would get they would get the right to work, which surely, like, that's unburdening the taxpayer. Like, why are the Daily Mail acting like this is scary? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's just such a confusing bunch of contradictions, because I think they've always got to find a way to do this, like, reveal, like, aha, well, actually, this would be this, and this is going to be even worse, or here's how it's even more stacked against you and pro-migrant. And, you know, they can't really make up their minds. It's like, you hate the hotels. Okay, to be honest with you, I personally don't like the fact that we've got asylum seekers in those hotels. I actually don't think they're great environments for anyone to be in. You also don't want houses. You don't want them to live in anything. So you don't want hotels. You don't want houses. You also want them to work and pay their way, but then you also don't want them to work at all. And then you also don't want them to use our services, even though they might be then working already and paying into those services. So it's just this kind of constant moving of the goalposts. It's this constant changing of you know, the target. It's a moving target all the time, and it's totally nonsensical. You know, she's kind of raging in that article about, you know, a world without borders, which normally, obviously, when we hear that phrase, it's normally like something really inspirational. We're like, oh yeah, a world without borders. But, you know, is she not happy for wealthy people to live in a world without borders? That's how they live. Jim Ratcliffe, he can go wherever he wants. He can live wherever he wants. He can leave and decide not to pay tax in the country where he does most of his business, apparently, if he wants to. So there's kind of this full freedom for him to move wherever he wants. This kind of real I guess, like neoliberal contradiction that's always been there, right? Yeah, we want freedom of movement for trade, we want freedom of movement for services, goods, but we do not want those lower class, underclass people, often coded, of course, as black and brown. We don't want those people to move anywhere. No, those people that have freedom, because that would be bad. Suddenly, then that is then bad when those people move across borders as opposed to wealthy people and goods and goods and services, right? So it's just this kind of horrible contradiction of things that's just really coming to a head because I think they can see that Zach Polanski is a threat. The polling numbers of Zach, we've talked about this many times. I hope people aren't getting sick of it. The polling numbers of the Green Party, it's really impressive what he's managed to do. He's not been leader that long, you know. It's really, really impressive how they've managed to really, you know, get themselves going. I think Hannah in the Gorton and Denton constituency is a really impressive candidate. I really hope that she wins. But yeah, they're absolutely a threat, and so this kind of mass contradictory hysteria is obviously a response to that. I also completely agree about the whole stuff around housing as well, and that the Greens clearly have policies around expansion of social housing. I don't think migration is the main problem that we have with housing in this country. There's huge problems to do with, you know, the private rented sector, shrinking home ownership, all of that stuff as well. Not enough council houses won't replace, and all of that. And the Greens have got policies that, you know, a holistic set of policies, if you like. You know, with reform, they're basically just telling us, well, we'll fix this one thing, i.e. migration, and then everything will kind of just fall into place. And no one ever really seems to ask them. If I'm ever on a panel with a Reform Party person, I want to really ask them, what is the big picture? Because you cannot sit there and be serious and seriously tell us you're going to fix this one thing, this one problem, and then magically everything's just going to be all calm and great and gravy again. It's not going to be. They don't have a holistic package of things. They've actually got a wildly contradictory set of policies, I think. You can't be, you know, migrants coming here, but at the same time you're very pro creating asylum seekers with Israel's, you know, bombing and genocide in Gaza, for example. So, you know, I think the Green Party, they've got a really nice kind of holistic set of policies together. Last thing I'll say really quickly as well, because you mentioned sex work, which I think is really important, and I agree with you that most sort of mainstream women's rights charities, you know, want to support sex workers. You know, again, like the likes of Sarah Vine and the Daily Mail, probably cosplayers giving a shit about workers. I guess that doesn't include maybe sex workers. But it's a really important issue. We need to include them when we think about workers' rights. And I think it's a bigger thing when we think about like the OnlyFans-ification of sex work, right? And the scope that there is now actually for sex workers to be exploited is actually massive. And one takeaway that I had from that awful Bonnie Blue documentary on Channel 4, don't know if anyone watched it last year, but one takeaway that I had from that for sex workers was, I want to know more about the sex workers who are exploited. I don't want to hear about the multi-millionaire fucking top 1% of OnlyFans creators. I want to know more about your average, you know, sex worker on OnlyFans, which can include some very young people who, you know, end up maybe doing things that they don't want to do, end up being exploited by bigger OnlyFans creators like the likes of Bonnie Blue. You know, there's a lot there, I think, for us to consider with this collision of sex work and the online world now. So entirely sensible stuff, and it's just unserious, all this scaremongering.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before, but like democracy in the workplace can give us power over AI. It can also give sex workers the power over institutions like OnlyFans, so that OnlyFans don't have all of the power in that relationship, and they can start to claim some of that power back. And indeed, it makes like pimping and stuff harder, because it means that it means that consent always has to play a role in it, and control over these different ideas and sex workers' rights always have to play a role. The English Collective of Prostitutes is I think the sex workers union here in the UK. Really worth checking out some of the stuff they do and the advocacy they do, because like you say, legalization is the not legalization, decriminalization. There's a distinction. Legalization can mean the Nordic model, and you don't want the Nordic model, you want decriminalization, because there's massive problems with the Nordic model as well. But away from the sex work stuff, with regards to borders and the idea of open borders, I do get a little bit frustrated with Reform saying that, you want open borders, because I'm not actually campaigning for open borders. Like the Greens might say that that's a long-term goal, right? But it's a bit like me turning around to them and going, oh, you want child murder because you support raising getting rid of reinstating the two-child benefit cap, right? So you support murdering little kids because you it's like there's a massive extrapolation going on there to the most extreme position. Now I might think that about reform. I do think about that about some of reformist politicians, but like I feel like framing the debate in that way, if I was on TV, would be dishonest. I wouldn't like start by saying that, you know, their policy of the two-child benefit cap murders, like that wouldn't be how I would approach it. And I feel like they could do us the same courtesy. There's a big distinction as well between open borders and which is not generally something I support, and the idea of free borders, of soft borders, right? The idea that there's a soft border, like Northern Ireland would be an example of a soft border. Like there are border checks, and you know that there's checks for things like to make sure that people aren't bringing weapons in, but people should be able to freely come and go. You know, like people should be able to freely come and go. It's the free movement of people that we're concerned with, whereas like I feel like the capitalist class is primarily concerned with the free movement of goods. Yeah. Did you have anything to say on that?
No, I completely agree with that. Classic neoliberal contradiction that, in my opinion, they were never able to explain. They were never able to explain when suddenly it was about people, especially black and brown people. It's like, ooh, can't have them doing that.
literally like it's honestly, it's so true, and it's so targeted at people from the global south as well, like just all of these restrictions, the way that everything's framed. Do you remember the Breaking Points poster from was it Breaking Point?
Yeah, Britain is at breaking point. Yeah, I remember
that's the one. Yes, yeah, and it was like it was like a big queue of brown people, and it's like, mate, the people from the European Union, this was during the referendum campaign, the majority of immigrants from the European Union are from places like Poland. They're not primarily, but it's that association between scaremongering about immigration and the like inherent, like underlying racism directed towards black and brown people.
No, completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we go on to the comments section? Let's do it. I was waiting for Sarah to reply to me in my ear, and then I realised that she wouldn't because she's not. She wasn't actually in.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Sorry. Oh my god! And also, I my laptop was lagging as per usual. I was like, oh no. It's lagging. Yeah, but it's just Curtis was like, it's because you got a HP, and I'm like, yeah, it is.
He's
what
right.
It is.
He's right.
It's true. I mean, free Congo, but also a Mac does work really, really well.
I know. I just can't bring myself to do it.
I know. It's horrible.
But you're so right. You're so right. Yeah. So let's go to. It's really weird. Like, apparently, there's been a lot of chat about the comments being censored, which is really interesting because normally our chat like is. But today it's been a little bit quiet. But there's been some good comments. Firstly, thank you, Michael, for the Turn Left membership. You legend, always present. Scribby 949 just became a member. Oh, sorry, I don't know why I did that. Yeah, but hi. And then Spec. I don't know, sorry. I'm so awkward. Specs gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. Hope you're well, Specs. Thank you. Sorry, I just saw Curtis comment hate HP. HP hates you. James Holmes gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. Legend. Thank you, James. You are always gifting, so we're really grateful. So yeah, super wonderful community. Right. Then I really like this comment, but Banseka, you are very loved. We can hear the legend that is Banseka. I'm like, she is a legend. Thank you. But we'll go to like the start then, and that one's gonna said, Labour will do anything but help the people that vote them in, which I don't think there's much to say on that. And Michael said, party before country, shameful careerists. And it's true because their whole slogan was what? Country... What was it? Country before party.
Wait, is this about Labour? Sorry.
Yeah, Labour.
God, so many slogans and they're all awful.
I know, they're all shit. None of them stuck. It's just terrible.
Yes, it's worth bearing in mind that what's the phrase? an empire is led by an emperor, a kingdom is led by a king, and a country is led by Keir Starmer.
Oh.
I'll take it. Sorry. Yes.
I love it. Salzwell
Sorry.
Snake. That was good.
That felt really cheap compared to all the deep points that Banseka's been making. Anyway.
Not even.
We balance each other out, it's fine.
Yeah.
A comment from Twitch. Surely the green policy on drugs does cover age restrictions anyway? Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it'll cover age restrictions.
And then on to AI. Yuri Gibson said, the question is, can bloody Lammy do this? Could he? Is it possible?
I don't have that legal expertise.
I was hoping that you would have more of an idea than me. No, but I did just remember what I was going to say about Lammy and then it's gone again. Jesus Christ, why am I like this today? I'm sorry, I cannot remember what it was. Oh yes, sorry, that's it. What I was going to say was, do you have like worries? I'll ask you this question now. Do you have worries about how, all right, the Labour Party will abuse this to have a go at some like I was going to say Just Stop Oil. I don't mean Just Stop Oil. Palestine Action activists. My brain is not online. I'm so sorry. The Labour Party will like abuse this system, like get rid of juries and replace the the court summaries with AI. The witness summaries with AI, in order to like crack down on a few Palestine Action protesters. Do you have concerns that because, based on current polling, Nigel Farage is going to be our next Prime Minister? Do you have concerns about the way that could be used by a reform government? And if you genuinely believe, as some Labour ministers have claimed, that they think that Nigel Farage is fascist, surely you would want to keep that out of Nigel Farage's hands. Like, I don't get that bit. Like,
I
what's it
don't
going to
think
look like?
they're not thinking that far ahead. They plan like one day ahead. Like, I remember like the day that they won that election, and I remember just thinking, these people don't know what they're doing next. There's no plan. There's no plan for anything. So, I don't know, they're so full of hubris. Maybe they were seriously in denial about the fact that Nigel Farage probably will be our next Prime Minister as it stands. But I just don't think these people are capable of thinking more than a couple of days ahead. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done what they did with Palestine Action, I think, to begin with, to try and prescribe it as a terrorist organisation, right? Because they probably would have been like, this might backfire and we might have to go through an embarrassing series of setbacks in the courts and have this undone. Like, they seem incapable, absolutely incapable of any kind of forward planning. And the gag is, we were told that these people wouldn't necessarily change much, but they would be competent managers. That's what we were told. You're not going to get much, but we'll manage things for you. And they can't even do that. They're not managing anything. They can't plan anything. They can't organise anything. It's shit. So I don't know. Sorry, that was awful. Excuse my language.
That's good.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't even think they're thinking anywhere near that far ahead. People like us are thinking we've probably got the year 2029 burned in our brains right now. I don't think they're thinking that far ahead at all. But someone tell me if they think I'm wrong. Was that uncharitable?
No, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Like, I'm surprised if they're thinking like as far as breakfast. Like they really are not that. Like they really are just, and people talk about like the great noticing, and it's like I think you're absolutely right. Surely, like on election day, they had the great noticing that like, yeah, we should have had a fucking plan. We probably should have planned for this scenario, because there was rumors that they didn't actually think they were going to win the election. They thought they were going to like marginally lose it, and then they were like, oh shit, we probably should have had some other plan than kick left, but like, that's the only thing they know how to do. I'm sorry, Sarah. I feel
no,
like
don't be. Soswald Snake. Sorry, I always pick people. I don't know why, but I think their comments have been popping up quite a bit. Geez, AI in medicine, AI in justice, AI in war. This can only go well. And then they supplemented that comment with, we should have killed off that Microsoft Word paperclip guy right at the start. Been downhill from there.
Oh no!
Do you remember? Oh my god!
I loved him though.
So
that was like peak 2000s sort of like computer entertainment. Right?
Literally, it had this little smile. I was like, oh, love him. Yeah, but yeah, this just
Evil.
really interesting. The chat's just been really weird today. Just I think things haven't been coming through, unfortunately. Something going on with
Strange.
YouTube.
Oh, sorry.
Um,
You haven't been
but
censored.
yeah, I think so. I don't really know what's going on. It's an odd
Oh, it's the
one.
paperclip. It's the paperclip.
It's the paperclip. It's
It
coming
is.
for us. Oh yeah, shit!
Yeah, in the
He's
comment, yeah.
my
It's the profile
God.
picture.
Actually looks like he's smiling. Oh, she's so cute. Right, and then Adam said, I'm trying to think of a green antagonist right now, and I can't think of any except the Grinch. And actually, if you're the Grinch, I don't think it's that bad. Michael then said they really are petrified a party might actually care for the people of this country and not the elite. It's interesting, isn't it? The fear that they have of the Greens. That the Greens intimidate them so much that they will call things Polanski law, and they will. They said the other day the Green Charity Industrial Complex in. That's what Zia Yusuf said in the 8-point plan, 8-point immigration plan. The Green Charity Industrial Complex, something like that. Like, what the fuck is that? What is that? Tell me you're like rattled without telling me you're rattled by the Green Party. Weird.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
Just like
Yeah.
just like the military industrial complex is primarily bad because it kills people. It's the military, right?
Yeah.
The charity industrial complex, like what?
But is it
Oh
like
my God.
because they're really pushing reform, are really pushing this whole we're a Christian nation. I think Christianity is all about charity, is it not? Is it not all about giving? Is it not all about loving thy neighbor? Like it all feels very contradictory. So yeah, very interesting stuff.
I thought it was about like every man for himself, Margaret Thatcher style individualism. There's a lot of that in the Gospels, right?
Yeah, there is. Oh God. Bradian says this about Sarah Vine. She wants them to get no money from the state, but also not be allowed to work to survive.
Right.
Make it make sense. And then Michael coming to my rescue. Thank you, Michael. Don't call Sarah a Muppet. She's doing a good job producing. Yeah.
She is.
For those who don't remember, I called Sarah Vine a Muppet, not our Sarah. Okay, right.
And the last one from Pseudonymous. Pseudonymous? I don't know. I can't read. Someone said on a video where Chico mispronounced the country. They're like, "Can you learn how to pronounce countries, please?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm trying." Yeah, someone said, "Are the causes unpalatable, or do they increase the party's popularity? You can't have both." I didn't really know. I can understand that one. I don't know if it's because my brain is slow. Like, what do you take from that, if anything? I don't understand what the comment means. It was related to the last one. It was the last story. This one came in at the last story, but maybe came in late. I'm not sure. So
are they saying? Sorry, I think I get what they're saying. They're saying the Daily Mail are saying that this is completely unpalatable, but it can't be that it's both unpalatable and increases the party's population, right? That's a bit of a somewhat of a contradiction. I guess you can have policies that are both popular and would be unworkable, but I think that the point the commentator is making is that they're like the reason that they're doing this isn't because they've got some concern about its the ability for it to be carried out, but rather they're worried because it's so popular. And like, I mean, Sarah Vine did publish this on the eve of the Gorton and Denton by-election, right? That's not a coincidence,
Exactly. And I'm just loving the paperclip pictures. It's great. But that's it for the comments. Honestly, really great show, guys. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. And I'll leave you to it.
Awesome. Cool. We've gone a bit over, so we will just close out the show. Thank you very much for joining me, Banseka. It has been amazing. First time. I can feel that we're both like a little bit drained from the days that we've had. It sounds like you've had quite a day, and I've been up since right early this morning. So, but we got through it. We made it through, and hopefully we made it entertaining. Where can people find you, and where can people find Naked Politics on the various platforms?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we've got a Substack as well, and we've got a website because we still write stuff because I still want people to read things. So yeah, come find us on Naked Politics. Just Google us, you'll find us, and yeah, support us if you like what we're doing.
Brilliant stuff. So let's close out the show. Thank you very much, Banseka. If you want to help us grow, please go to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, or if you can't help us financially, just share our content. Hit like and subscribe. It all helps us grow, and sometimes a share is even more valuable than a monetary donation. It's all about bringing our politics into a new era. You've been watching Norland, our live show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Get out there, and we'll see you all after the by-election. Good night.